take your seats. Great. Thank you very much. We are just about to start our next session. So if you could please kindly take your seats. My panelists are here, so it's good to have you here with us. Great. So thank you very much. So this afternoon, we're going to have an interesting session that will look into more concrete case studies and more concrete practices. And that around, of course, the Diamond Open Access, the perspectives from the globe. And the idea really is to showcase what can be done, but also what the challenges might be, and what we can learn from each other's good and also bad practices. So if you had in your cases had some issues, please share those with us as well, because this is also something that we can learn from as well. So I'm not going to do a very long introduction because we don't have a lot of time and we do need to finish on time. I'll very briefly introduce the panelists. So we have Dr. Sylvie Rousset from France, from the French National Center for Scientific Research. Professor Mary Abukuza Onyango from Kenya, the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. Dr. Mumita Kohli from India, DST Center for Policy Research, Indian Institute of Science from Bangalore, Research on Research Institute. And Dr. Emily Choyanovsky, based in Dubai, from the Forum on Research in MENA and Knowledge E. And I'm sorry, I think I'm missing just our last speaker, Professor Liu Xiaowen from China, from the National Science Library at the Chinese Academy of Sciences. So a big round of applause already for our speakers that are here. Thank you very much. And I think I'm going to give the floor to Sylvie to start. 15 minutes each. I'm going to start waving a little bit before talk, and then we'll have some time for questions.
Bonjour à tous. Je suis très heureuse d'être participée à ce deuxième sommet sur le diamant, l'accès diamant aux publications. Et je voudrais remercier les organisateurs, les organisateurs Reggie and Noxt pour cette opportunité de vous présenter ce qu'il se passe donc vous n'avez pas la traduction et aussi la présentation, peut-être la diapo aussi. Ça, c'est bon. Ah, ok, merci. Oui, c'est bon, c'est bon. Donc, l'objectif est de vous donner quelques nouvelles de ce qui se passe. Alors, en Europe, je ne serai pas exhaustif, mais quelques initiatives actuelles sur le diamant en Europe et la situation en France et au CNRS, qui est le Centre national de recherche scientifique auquel j'appartiens. Comme il a été déjà dit, il y a vraiment, depuis 10 ans, un mouvement très fort en Europe pour la science ouverte. La science ouverte étant vue comme le moyen d'avoir une recherche de qualité, une recherche publique qui doit être partagée selon des valeurs, selon l'idée du bien commun, mais on va voir que ce n'est pas forcément à quel prix la science ouverte. Dire que la science ouverte ne suffit pas, il faut préciser, c'est ce que je ferai un tout petit peu plus tard. Mais il y a quand même un engouement, un développement de la science ouverte en Europe depuis une dizaine d'années, et également les pays ont développé des politiques de science ouverte qui sont vraiment assumées au plus haut niveau des institutions, ce qui est vraiment très important. Dans les États, vous avez le deuxième plan national pour la science ouverte qui a été présenté par la ministre de l'Enseignement supérieur et de la Recherche en 2021, après le premier plan en 2018. Et le CNRS a également publié une feuille de route sur la science ouverte. Donc ça permet d'avoir un cadre. Et une des choses importante qui a été développée, qui est encore en train de se développer, c'est un baromètre de la science ouverte qui vise à mesurer le nombre de publications publiées par, ici c'est la France, qui sont en accès ouvert. Alors je précise que les publications qui sont concernées ici, c'est écrit là, sont concernées viennent de la base essentiellement de Crossref et ont un DOI, mais ça ne vient pas des bases commerciales comme Web of Science ou Scopus. C'est des recherches sur des bases gratuites et ouvertes. Donc vous voyez, comme je vous le disais, depuis 2018 jusqu'à 2023, on a une augmentation de l'accès ouvert qui est passé de 38% à 65%. Maintenant, ça sature un petit peu. Nous avons fait la même chose au CNRS. Alors, les 80% d'accès ouvert que nous avons atteints maintenant, c'est à l'intérieur de nos laboratoires qui sont mélangés avec nos autres partenaires. Et quand on se restreint aux chercheurs du CNRS, aujourd'hui, il y a 95% des publications écrites par des auteurs qui sont payés par le CNRS qui sont en accès ouvert. Donc finalement, on a atteint ce premier objectif de notre feuille de route qui était d'avoir pratiquement 100% des publications en accès ouvert. Et c'est grâce à une obligation de déposer dans notre archive ouverte nationale HAL. Mais comme vous le savez, aujourd'hui, ce n'est pas ça le problème. Ça, c'est une satisfaction, mais les chercheurs du CNRS, ça ne représente pas toute la science dans le monde, évidemment. Et le problème auquel nous faisons face, où nous faisons tous face, également, alors c'est un problème, je veux dire, très important en Europe, parce que on a depuis longtemps souscrit des contrats avec les gros éditeurs, et aujourd'hui, le modèle est en train de changer, de passer d'un modèle de souscription à un modèle de frais de publication payant obligatoire pour mettre son article en accès ouvert. Donc, vous voyez les recensements qu'on peut faire, soit au CNRS ici, où on regarde directement dans les factures du CNRS ce qui est payé. On voit qu'il y a une augmentation très importante, un facteur 3, je crois, en 3 ans. Et ici, je crois que c'est le schéma que vous a montré Ariana ce matin avec Marin Dacos qui montrait cette figure. C'est une étude théorique des APC qui devraient être payés par toutes les institutions françaises de l'enseignement supérieur et de la recherche entre 2013 et 2020. Et si vous regardez, alors le total, c'est la courbe rouge, on arrive à 30 millions d'euros d'APC qui sont payés en 2020. C'est 3 fois plus que ce qui était payé en 2013. Vous voyez que c'est évidemment le modèle Gold qui a suivi la plus grosse progression. Et il y a un autre graphe que je ne vous ai pas montré ici qui examine qu'est-ce qui va se passer à l'avenir. Et si on se projette pour 2030, avec un modèle économique qui serait que tous les articles vont devenir payés par les APC pour être ouverts, c'est un peu le modèle où les éditeurs veulent nous emmener, on devrait payer 168 millions d'euros en 2030, à comparer à 90 millions d'euros qu'on paye aujourd'hui en souscription, en abonnement. Donc, ce modèle, je vais rappeler ici que, je dirais, entre guillemets, même pour les pays d'Europe, c'est un modèle qui n'est pas soutenable, qu'on ne va pas continuer à payer, en plus d'un modèle qui n'est pas éthique, c'est l'auteur qui paye pour être publié. Ça conduit à une baisse de la qualité des publications, parce que les plateformes qui font de l'accès ouvert automatique ont un taux de rejet qui baisse, parce que c'est leur intérêt de publier plus, ils font plus d'argent, plus ils publient, et publient plus vite. Et puis, ça exclut toutes les communautés scientifiques ou tous les pays qui ne vont pas aller dans ce système payant trop élevé. Donc, on est d'accord que ça, c'est un malentendu. Alors, probablement en Amérique latine, on va me dire vous auriez dû le savoir depuis le début. C'était évident que vous alliez dans le mur avec ça, mais en réalité, c'était pas partagé par tout le monde. Donc aujourd'hui, il y a une prise de conscience que même les accords transformants qui étaient négociés il y a quelques années, il faut arrêter ça et ce n'est pas la solution. Alors, tout le monde encore ne pense pas exactement ça. Nous, au CNRS, on a vraiment dénoncé ça. Le ministère de l'Enseignement supérieur et de la Recherche aussi, à divers endroits. Donc, ça évolue. Voilà, ça va dans ce sens. Et c'est important d'expliquer, de montrer ces graphes pour faire comprendre le problème. Donc, du coup, si on veut faire de la science ouverte, cohérente avec nos valeurs, de la recherche doit être un bien commun, doit être partagé, doit être équitable, transparente, tout ce qu'on a déjà dit jusqu'ici, eh bien, il faut changer de modèle. Et dans le deuxième plan pour la science ouverte du ministère, il est clairement dit qu'il faut soutenir le modèle Diamant et que c'est le modèle qui vraiment doit être mis en avant. Et moi, je pense que c'est effectivement le seul modèle qui sera juste. Alors, le ministère soutient un outil de financement qui s'appelle le Fonds national pour la science ouverte, qui, depuis 3 ans, a donné de l'ordre de 25 millions d'euros, dont 7 millions d'euros pour des initiatives, des plateformes ou bien des revues d'accès ouvert. Et vous avez quelques exemples ici. Je vais continuer pour ne pas passer trop de temps. Ici, le CNRS soutient également ce type d'action. Et là, j'ai essayé de mentionner un peu autour du diamant l'écosystème assez important qui se développe maintenant en France. Bon, la plateforme Open Edition est très connue dans le milieu des SHS. Ils avaient un temps d'avance puisqu'ils se sont développés déjà il y a plus de 20 ans. Mais il y a d'autres, dans les autres disciplines, en mathématiques et toutes les disciplines STM, Peer Community In, le Centre Mersenne, sont des plateformes qui développent des revues avec le modèle Diamant. Et je voulais juste mettre en valeur la plateforme Epicence, qui est une plateforme qui propose des overlaid journals, c'est-à-dire des journaux qui s'appuient sur des articles qui sont déposés dans des bases de préprint ou dans des archives ouvertes et qui mettent un processus de referring. Puisque je ne l'ai pas dit explicitement, mais évidemment, on est tous concernés par le fait que le reviewing par les pairs est une gage de qualité sur les papiers s'il est bien mené. Et c'est pour ça qu'on ne veut pas se satisfaire seulement des archives ouvertes, mais avoir quand même un système d'édition. Donc c'est une plateforme qui gagne à être connue et qui se développe chez nous. Des initiatives plus générales, donc ça a été mentionné, mais je pense que c'est bien de le redire. Il y a un plan d'action qui a été lancé en 2022 à l'initiative de Sciences Europe, du plan S, de l'ANR et de la plateforme Opéra, pour essayer de fédérer tous ceux qui veulent développer l'édition scientifique via le modèle Diamant et qui, à un moment donné, peuvent être éparpillés un peu partout. Donc aujourd'hui, c'est un plan qui a à peu près 160 organisations qui ont signé. Et l'idée, c'est vraiment d'agréger des ressources communes, de favoriser des actions de multilinguisme et également une diversité culturelle. Et en janvier 2025, le 15 janvier à Madrid, ça a été mentionné également, sera lancé le European Diamond Capacity Hub qui vise à fédérer les initiatives européennes et à aider ceux qui voudraient développer un outil, une revue ou une plateforme Diamant, de trouver des aides, des conseils et donc dans ce hub. Donc finalement, pour terminer, je voulais montrer qu'on a d'autres problèmes, dans l'édition scientifique. Aujourd'hui, il y a un nouveau problème, entre guillemets, c'est pas nouveau d'aujourd'hui, mais vous savez qu'on a des papiers qui sortent de on ne sait pas d'où. Il y a des moulins à papier qui arrivent grâce à pas mal d'outils, l'intelligence artificielle. Et là, je vous ai mis le cas d'un article qui parle de la neurochirurgie sur Saturne. Donc, je pense que ça intéresse tout le monde de savoir qu'est-ce qui se passe sur Saturne. C'est un article qui est publié chez Elsevier, quand même. L'auteur, pour ça, il a dû payer presque $2000 de frais de publication. Et voilà, donc ça a passé toutes les barrières du referring. Donc aujourd'hui, on fait face à même ce que peut-être certains considéraient un gage de qualité avec ces gros publishers, n'en est plus un. Donc il y va quand même aussi de la qualité de la recherche. Et pour ça, on ne s'en sortira pas. De la même façon aussi pour faire valoir le modèle diamant, puisque le modèle diamant, c'est vrai, il a été, nous en Europe, on arrive un peu les derniers, il a été très très développé en Amérique latine. Et aujourd'hui, le constat, c'est que ces articles, ils sont peu lus, ils n'arrivent pas à émerger au niveau de ce que nous vendent les gros éditeurs. Donc c'est aussi un autre problème. Donc pour ça, il faut absolument réformer l'évaluation de la recherche. La première motivation, c'est pour la qualité de la recherche, parce que notre évaluation n'est plus une garantie d'une recherche d'excellence. Donc il faut vraiment se débarrasser de cet impact facteur du journal, c'est pas parce qu'on est cité dans un journal à haut impact facteur qu'on est soi-même, qu'on a un bon article. Et puis c'est aussi un frein très fort pour le développement de la science ouverte et de la publication vertueuse comme le modèle diamant. Donc pour ça, l'Europe a lancé, il y a 2 ans, une coalition qui s'appelle The Coalition for Advancing Research Assessment, COARA, dans laquelle j'ai participé, j'étais membre du steering board jusqu'à il n'y a pas longtemps, avec Lydia Damien-Borel aussi, et on a aussi Jane Polonen qui est quelque part dans la salle. C'est une coalition, alors il y a en fait 4 engagements principaux. Et les membres de cette coalition se sont engagés à essayer de faire valoir ces engagements. Donc c'est reconnaître la diversité des contributions pour une carrière de chercheur, ne pas baser l'évaluation sur des critères quantitatifs, mais sur des critères qualitatifs. Donc laisser tomber toute la bibliométrie, y compris l'impact journal factor. Et aussi ne pas dire que ce n'est pas parce que vous êtes dans une organisation qui est classée numéro 1 que vous êtes vous-même numéro 1. Donc voilà, ce sont des engagements qui sont endossés par aujourd'hui plus de 700 membres. Et le cœur de la coalition a démarré en Europe, mais vous voyez maintenant ça s'est élargi à d'autres pays et c'est quelque chose qui nous tenait vraiment aussi à cœur avec Lydia d'inclure le plus possible tous ces pays. Aussi dans le steering board, et c'est pas fini, on a encore pas mal de choses à faire. Donc pour conclure, j'ai juste rappelé les points que j'ai voulu mentionner, c'est-à-dire un grand engagement pour la science ouverte en Europe, mais un grand problème dont tout le monde prend conscience, qui est le modèle du paiement des frais de publication qui a tous les défauts que j'ai déjà décrits. Donc aujourd'hui, un engagement très fort pour le modèle en acier de diamant et qui ne pourra être développé qu'avec en même temps une réforme de l'évaluation de la recherche. Et pour finir, je voulais délivrer un dernier message avec cette diapositive que j'ai prise. Nous avions participé au sommet de l'an dernier à Toluca et nous avons beaucoup d'attentes et d'espoir dans la suite en venant ici dans ce deuxième sommet où déjà les discussions ont été très inspirantes. Et nous espérons bien que, comme ça avait été annoncé, on va aller vers une alliance globale du modèle diamant pour essayer tous ensemble de le faire émerger. Et je pense qu'on a tous des intérêts dans cette alliance globale. Et c'est le vœu que je forme ici pour finir. Et je voulais remercier les personnes qui m'ont aidé dans ma préparation et vous-même pour m'avoir écouté.
Thank you very much, Sylvie. I'm always impressed by the clarity of the French open science journey. I think it is a very structured one and a lot to learn from that. I like the ideas that you put forward. You know, how do we redefine quality? How do we reform research assessment? And how do we link the two going forward, also for the promotion of Diamond Open Access? So thanks so much for that. Professor Mary, you have the floor, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. I know it's after lunch, you might be dozing. I'll make sure you don't sleep on me. I'm happy to be here. I am an African who has spent almost 3 decades promoting the consumption of African indigenous vegetables as part of the decolonization on our foods. We were told our foods are poor man's, in fact, the vegetables were referred to as poor man's foods or vegetables. I have worked in 3 decades with other members of the society in Africa and beyond to make African indigenous vegetables move from being considered poor man's food to high value crops globally. So with that, I'm just going to share with you my journey briefly in 15 minutes. I hope I'll try. My experiences on that research on African indigenous vegetables and open access, publishing, and other communications, not just limited to publishing. So African indigenous vegetables is my research area for the last 3 decades and beyond. This research has largely been multidisciplinary, multi-institutional, participatory, collaborative, and transdisciplinary. That was way back from 1990. So you can place in the words we are speaking today. I don't have those terms, but I'm just giving you what I went through. I worked closely with an international center, World Vegetable Center, the Regional Center for Africa in Arusha, and then Global Center in Taiwan. This work started in 1991 at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology and Maseno University in 1996. These are the 2 universities I worked in Kenya. The objective of the research was and still is to promote sustainable production and utilization of African indigenous vegetables, AIVs, for nutrition security and poverty reduction in Kenya, and if possible in Africa, because that's a key area. So the main objective is to solve one of the global challenges, not just in Africa, but in the world. But you may ask, why did I choose African indigenous vegetables? Because they are loaded with a lot of advantages. A story for another day. They're nutritious, they grow very fast, they have climate-smart resilience. So what did we do in summary? We started from the basics. We had surveys talking to all the people, those who have the knowledge, like here. And then getting germplasm collection, that the seeds from different countries in Africa, of course, working with World Vegetable Center. We did seed bulking, studied these seeds, and also packaged them, characterized. And we came up with agronomic and nutritional recommendations for various selected few African indigenous vegetables. We just didn't stop there. We did advocacy and outreach, capacity building at undergraduate and postgraduate students. The sad thing is that when I went through my undergraduate, I never saw anything in the syllabus about African indigenous vegetables in the agriculture syllabus or curricula. It was all the foreign, what we call exotic vegetables. So we had to bring in that into our syllabus. Farmers, CBOs, and policymakers. I remember one of our policymakers' dialogue on African indigenous vegetables was held in Rhodes University here in South Africa in 2007. We did not stop there. We do dissemination, and as we speak now, we are now talking about commercialization of African indigenous vegetables, not just in Kenya, exporting them to the diaspora in US and UK and other countries beyond Africa. So in essence, my research, or our research, had several impacts. So we did the research, we had quality seed. As we speak now, we registered 9 African indigenous vegetables varieties. We have leaflets beyond just the scientific jargon, we decided we want to simplify this information for the end users. We have made policies and other end users to use this knowledge. So for us to reach everybody, someone talked about impact. Impact is not about hiding the knowledge in a few selected journals where the common man, where the one who needs the knowledge most cannot reach. So in our research, we looked at broad way of publication. So we had scientific papers. First of all, I'll talk about scientific papers, and we had also, under scientific papers, we also had other publications which are not considered traditionally as scientific papers. But let me talk about scientific papers publications. If we are about my age, don't ask me how old I am, we started with the traditional print journals, which will take a long time, a year. You will submit your paper, and you'll come up with all red marks. That's where I started, way back. Then I came into international, what they call international journals. I experienced rejection. One of the reasons why my paper was rejected in a European journal, I'm sorry, I will not say the word because we need peace in the world. I was told my paper is good, but they doubt the quality of the lab I was using in Kenya. University of Nairobi, the best university in Kenya. So I had to publish in African journal in Kenya. When I published this paper, why I knew it was quality paper, I got inquiries from all over the world. It was looking at the content of glucosinolates and thiocyanate in sukuma wiki, African kale, one of our vegetables. The other rejection I had, I was told that the subject you are talking about is not good for our readership. That's African indigenous. So there are two biases. There's the lab and there's the subject. Then I decided, okay, how do I now start exploiting open access? My first experience with open access publishing was with the African Journal of Food, Agriculture, Nutrition, and Development, an African journal, in 2007. And how I found it was through I used the DOAJ, the Directory of Open Access Journals, because I wanted my work to be known, to be read, not to be hidden or to be biased. So that's where my journey started. So what happened after that? In 2010, I hope all of you are born that time. In 2010, Electronic Information Libraries, IFIL, and the Consortium of Kenyan University Libraries invited me to a workshop in Kenyan universities at the University of Nairobi, courtesy of AGFund. AGFund is the journal I've just told you. That's where I published my first open access paper. So I was invited to that conference, talking about open access. And since that time, I've never looked back. I was convinced that open access is the way to go. Because what I wanted everybody. I wanted to shout at the top of my voice about African indigenous vegetables, because there's a history behind it. They saved my life as a food, as a young child. So on this slide, I'm just showing what I did from that time. From 2010, that day, I think one of the organizers interviewed me about what I think about open access, and I gave my mind. And that mind is what I'm still talking about up to today. And I've done that in Kenyan universities, Uganda, and also I think there's a US university online in 2018, and Cape Town 2019, and here I am. I'm still talking about the same story because I believe we need to go this way. Open access. Hiding knowledge will not help anybody. So now, how did I go in summary? What have I published? What did I do? So as I told you, there was rejections. Sometimes it was a cost. One time, one of the press, I wanted to publish a book, and then I was to was supposed to pay 1 million Kenya shillings, and I could not, so I just put that aside. But all said and done, this is what I've published. So I'm going to put everything. So I have public lectures and keynote speeches are part of the scientific communication. My thesis in University of Nairobi has been put in repositories, is accessible. You look at books, book chapters, up to 10. Okay, this is not even updated list. This was, I think, about 2 or 3 years ago, it has improved. So you can see part of my work, most of my work, I endeavor to make sure it is accessed. I know some people, sometimes people steal. Let them steal. They steal and use it. It's okay. It's open access. That's part of development. Now, in our university, you are supposed to be on Google Scholar. It's mandatory. So because of this, why I have put this, you can go to Google if you like, key in my name, Google Scholar, you'll see. But what I'm trying to suggest is here. It is in 2007 that I started publishing open access. But my work started in 1991. But before that, there was in March, you can see what has happened up to 2022. Of course, after 2022, that's another story. What am I saying? People are able to see this work. It may not be the highest H index. We've talked about H index, but what I'm saying is more people are seeing my work on African indigenous vegetables. And we are getting global scientific interest in this particular area. I want to say, because of this, before then, even the funding agencies did not want to fund my project because they thought that is poor man's weeds. I had to do research, do lab analysis, and convince one of the funders that African indigenous vegetables are superior to even cabbage in terms of nutrition. What else have I done? Since 2010, after I was invited by the journal Ag Fund, that conference, that workshop was largely for librarians, but I happened to have been invited and I was a researcher. Back to my university, we teamed up with the librarian of my university, Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, and we said we are going to have a policy, digital repository policy. And we did that. We did open access sensitization. We did several things so that the university, actually it was one of the first universities in Kenya to have a digital repository after that workshop. So we did this through sensitization. I was personally involved, and of course I was there just sharing what I'm sharing, although at a lower level because that time I hadn't published so much. So we developed this, and the good thing is the IR, or institutional repository or digital repository, was launched by our VC, and it has been in place. What does it do? It collects, preserves, and distributes digital materials. And in that, if you go to that website, you will find different things. You have JKUAT graduation ceremony issues, the news, journals, key speeches, library, and of course I have also put some of my publications there to be open, accessible to many of us. There were policies, research papers, conference papers, even the university students, when you do your master's and PhD degrees, you're supposed to deposit there. So if you want to see my digital repository profile, you can just search my name, Abukusa and JKUAT on digital repository. You'll see a few of my publications there, accessible. So what are the benefits of this within the university? So we achieved the following. The issue of the IR, that is in institutional repository, has been taken up by the Vice Chancellor then, and it has been constantly followed. And the VC asked all the researchers in the university to register on Google Scholar, and this makes it easier for the library to harvest research by JKUAT researchers. Ranking universities is a contributory, so that also we contributed to that. Having said that, let me tell you in summary what I feel from my own experience, the benefits of an institutional repository or digital repository and open research, open science, or open publishing. One, dissemination of information to end users. We've talked about impact. I asked myself at that time, what is impact? Impact, is it publishing in high impact journals so that I am promoted, or is it the impact to change lives? That's a question for researchers. Two, knowledge and information sharing, availability of reference materials. I tell you, when I said this work in 1991, there was no reference material on African indigenous vegetables. Very little. So we grew that. Information and knowledge development, visibility of scholars, like citations and like Google Scholar, like I've said. Professional advancement, our personal testimony, invitation to conferences as a keynote speaker. I am here because of that, because I talked to Professor Raju. I said, what am I going to say different? He told me, come and tell your story. So I'm happy to be here to tell my story. Increased collaborations, job opportunities and consultancies, repositioned AIVs to super vegetables globally, and recognition of awards globally. I've just showed the Edinburgh Medal in 2014, and then recently, this year, I got the National Outstanding Research Award in Kenya in 2024. I attribute all that because I was not just doing research and hiding under the table. I did research and shared in open access publishing journals, and also went beyond and translated the information to the end users. So these are some of them that I would like to show. This one here was, I think, CGAR recognition, because we did work on indigenous vegetables and the communication to different people. This was the then Secretary of State of the United States of America, who came here, in Kenya, in 2009, and my work was part of what was shown. And then here is African Union. I received an award as a senior scientist because of the work I was doing and how it's touching lives. And this is the most recent one. This is the one, the NORA Award 2024. I see she's looking at me. I told my story cannot be finished in 15 minutes, but I'll try to summarize. So if you go here, you'll find an article in Nature just showing the rise of Africa's super vegetables. An American journalist came all the way from New York to come and tell my story. Why? Because she could see the work because there was open access published work, and it was evident that we have done some work and we have some resources, gold mine, to be exploited in Africa. So before I am about to finish, challenges were there. Like in this particular thing, we find that in Africa, in Kenya, we have poor internet connectivity, inadequate ICT infrastructure. I see some of you are going to talk about this. Inadequate advocacy and misconceptions about publishing, managing IP rights, among others that have already been alluded to. Harvesting research is a tedious process because the library has to confirm with the different publishers on archiving rights. That has been alluded to. In conclusion, I want to say this. 15 minutes is not enough to tell my story. But I want to say this. I am who I am today because I chose to work on a rare crop that was actually looked down upon by everybody, including policymakers. Two, I dared into open access and also decided not just to publish and not perish, but to share information at all levels. My work now involves someone from the media, fully involved in the project, because we must tell our story. So now, we are actually upscaling all the technologies we have developed in the last 30 years. We are now upscaling to farmers in counties in Kenya. Last, Chair, I want to say that intra-Africa, why do we always go to Europe or go to other places? So we have an EU project, intra-Africa exchange for masters and PhD students on African indigenous crops. Thank you.
Many, many thanks, Professor Mary. I think everybody really enjoyed your story. And I think we need more of these stories. It's very inspirational and excellent. Thank you so much. Beautiful. But also it really reminds us this, you know, it's a specific issue that you were working on. Open science is not an end in itself, right? It is because you want more impact and because you want more people to be involved. So excellent story, beautiful. Thank you very much again for sharing with us. Dr. Mumita, you have the floor.
Anna, and after Professor Mary's inspiring lecture, her life story, I'm feeling that, yeah, do we really need much more? Because we know how to go, we have to fight. But I know that probably not all of us has that courage to fight alone. Sometimes we have to work collectively because, of course, we are not like her, maybe. Many of us not. So that's what probably my presentation is helpful because we are trying to identify what are the barriers in our research ecosystem in India and why actually we went backwards. Because we had a very good diamond open access, or at least journal ecosystem, which could have been very easily transformed to open access, and some of them were. But unfortunately, we have never grown from there. Rather, we have probably went backwards. And in the morning session, actually, Madan has already shared much more information on such kind of journal. So what I would try to do now is to show you that what are the barriers that we are facing now, because if we can identify the barriers, then we know how we can go forwards. And that is exactly what would be my presentation today will be about. And if you see, actually the major barriers comes from the research assessment practices, the recognition in what we use today. And that is what I will focus on in my presentation. So I'm categorizing it like I will go step by step with this, what we are seeing right now as a challenge to promote the diamond ecosystem. So the assessment system and the university ranking, and how all this recognition system is actually suppressing the research that matters in the country, and how the quality and visibility of the diamond journals are also not good. That's why researchers are not always ready to publish in there. And finally, of course, maybe a lot is because of the awareness. We lack the awareness. There are many journals where we can still publish, still we decide to pay or publish. And that's why awareness is important as well. So first, I would like to highlight our National Institutional Ranking Framework. This might actually resonate with many of you here, that how the rankings are actually pushing back science. So what we have in India is this NIRF. So all the institutions get a ranking. It's a voluntary, but of course everybody wants to know what's the ranking, so they all participate in it. Public, private, everyone. And it's quite famous now. Everybody wants to really climb the ladder in the ranking. Its funding is not associated with it. It's purely a reputational ranking, but still this ranking matters a lot, specifically for the private institutions, because their student intake is a lot. They can advertise their rankings, and then students' intake can go up. That's their revenue model. And what we see in this particular ranking system, the research quality, which actually accounts for quite a bit of points in the whole ranking system, the way the points are calculated, research quality and quantity, both matters a lot. And here you're talking about the research only which is published in Web of Science and Scopus. And they even they use a formula with which they calculate, gives the value. So it's obvious that everybody wants to publish in Web of Science. And if we see that, actually, I will show in the next slide that's how quality and quantity is so correlated that if you publish more, you will actually get a lot of point in that category. And many of the institutes get a lot of, almost 100% in that category. Doesn't make sense, because not everybody is equal. Another problem that also is that even global university rankings influence the system. We have something called Institute of Eminence scheme, which is quite prestigious scheme. And there also the target is to go into in the top 100 in the Times Higher Education ranking. But this year, Times Higher Education ranking, if you see the Indian university, when they have released the data and the quality parameters, shows that top institution in the country, Indian Institute of Science, from where I also come from, actually was ranked, got so less value and quality and quantity. And this is, nobody can believe it, because it's very clear that which is the top institution in the country, who does good research. But you will see some unnamed university which nobody had heard about actually tops the list. So you can already understand that there is something going on in the system that's not favoring what should be what we should count actually, or what we should do. As I already mentioned, that quality and quantity goes hand in hand. If you publish a lot, your quality also goes up, and you score almost 100% in those parameters in the university ranking in the NIRF. Now I come to another point. Again, why publication matters so much, and publishing in Scopus Index or Web of Index matters so much? Because that's also been taken into account when you go for funding, when you apply for funding in the funding agency. The initial screenings are invariably done based on those. Journal impact factor, how many publications are done. So in the initial filtering, you are out. Though the next step is peer review. But there are biases in those peer review as well, because the peer reviewers are already quite biased in over the time that journal publication is the only thing that matters in research. If you have publications in Nature, you can secure your grant. So that's how the whole system works. The same is with researchers' career evaluation. You have to publish more and more and more. And probably you have to get a lot of citation. So we are nowadays seeing a lot of citation gaming as well. Now I will come to another story that I wanted to highlight. I told that because of this type of publication ecosystem, the research which matters for the country actually have a lot of, that's go to a lot of backseat. I'm not sure why this one is not coming up. So in that, actually the graph, which has not become black, maybe that somebody doesn't want me to show it. So in that graph, actually, if you would see, we had actually analyzed the publication between 2015 to 2019 in the health research areas. And we tried to correlate that how much of them actually address the disease burden. So how much it correlates with the disease burden that we are facing as a country, how it aligns with it. So, and the disease burden data was taken from the WHO database. And if we see this collaboration, our publication has the least collaboration with our own disease burden. Whereas, for example, high-income countries has a much better correlation of 0.6 with their own disease burden and their own publication. And we had it 0.2 in that. Even low-income countries has much better than that. Even China has much better than that. Brazil has much better than that. Even low, in the most, like we were the least. In Indian research, it was the least correlation between our disease burden and the publication. And if you see, like, in those years, almost 1/4, if you can see, that one is not black. So if you can see here, in those, the cancer research in this Indian data, nearly 1/4 of our publication in all those years were actually dedicated to cancer, whereas cancer actually accounts for only 5% of our disease burden. There are certain diseases, or for example, certain respiratory diseases that has 14% burden, whereas the research would be so less in those areas. There are so many much more examples like that. I just, for as an indicating factor, I just showed it. But why this is the case? Because if cancer, of course, cancer is a disease which we have to be doing research on, but why 1/4 of the research is on this area? Because you can publish, actually this is something which happens much more in the high-income country. They cares a lot about cancer research. You can publish in in the global journal very easily if you're doing research in cancer. This is one of the primary reasons. Other reason, of course, the pharmaceutical companies are also interested in it, so you have better funding in that as well. So combining these two factors, you see this kind of results. So obviously, nobody would want to publish in local journals when you know how to publish in the high-impact journal, which matters. I think Sylvia talked a little bit about how the kind of research misconduct, and if you see that in India right now, we are seeing a lot of research misconduct, a lot of retractions are happening from India as well. Yes, other countries, and I would say that these retraction values are very low. Most of the things actually doesn't get retracted, except for those ridiculous AI-generated paper which people can very easily figure out. But there are a lot there. Now, we need solution. So this year we went ahead and we launched a survey among researchers to understand where do we stand, what do they expect from the Indian journals. But we also took a step back. First ask, what exactly the problem that you face in the international journal? Of course, long peer review, lack of funding of OA publication, difficulty in getting accepted, and also bias. These were the problem that they face in international journal. But now let's take then the question is that, okay, if you have so much of problem with the international journal, why you are not actually publishing in Indian journal? There are still few good Indian journal available. You don't actually, your best research or even your mediocre research doesn't go there. You will publish, you will pay APC and publish in some open access journal published from Global North, but you won't publish in your own journal because they feel really dissatisfied with the journals. And what are the dissatisfaction? You see almost a lot. More than 50%, 60–70% is quite dissatisfied with the journals. And also, what are the major problem? Of course, that challenges is the visibility and poor indexing. Because this is one of the things they want to get recognized because thus NIRF or nobody takes into account Indian journal, which are not indexed in Web of Science and Scopus, so nobody wants to publish there. And then if you see that that doesn't get high citation because it doesn't have more readership. Peer review is also not good. And long peer review time, which of course also is with international journal as well. So what's the solution? Because we already also had done a lot of discussion among ourselves, how to promote the Indian journal, how to make them better. But obviously we know that we have to do those kind of things, making them indexed, improving the system. But here I think that maybe we need some solution which will be really disruptive. Because with this current solutions, we are not going anywhere. Of course, one solution is the diamond, that's for sure, because you see that how we are even undermining our own research. And other solution, probably only one solution won't be enough. So maybe technology can help us so that we can be so effective and efficient even in the diamond publishing that everybody will adopt it. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And really interesting, again, to hear from the real experiences, the issues with the publishing, but also research assessment. And I'm very happy that we are going to have these sessions where we're going to dive deep into these discussions of what research assessment would be needed for Diamond and kind of the other way around as well. So thank you very much for that. I think, Emily, you have the floor now. Please go ahead.
So some of you know me as the director of the Forum for Open Research in MENA, but today I am here in my other role as Chief Academic Officer of Knowledge-E, and we are a Dubai-based publisher, but you're not allowed to throw things at me because I promise we are good people and supporting Diamond, and I will tell you about that now. So we are a mission-driven company focused on advancing accessible knowledge by providing affordable publishing solutions for journal owners, as well as funding initiatives such as the Forum for Open Research in MENA and the DOAJ. And we aim to encourage stakeholders to embrace the concept of owned journals, to reclaim journal ownership from the publishers who, as we know, have acquired so many of these valuable assets from their academic owners when the sheer scale of potential profits from the APC model became apparent. And effectively what we try and do is support the growth of community-owned and community-led journals publishing content by and for local communities. And today what I want to talk about is the financial underpinnings for Diamond Open Access publishing, based on our experiences as the publishing partner for universities and funders in the region. And generally what I want to do is offer guidelines for what this entails in terms of financial and human commitments. Now, the issue of localization and publishing local content by and for the locals is particularly pressing for us in the Arab region. There are 22 Arab states comprising 400 million Arabic speakers, yet there are just 290 fully Arabic academic journals within the region and a further 560 multilingual journals willing to publish Arabic content. And of these, only 182 are in the DOAJ and just 9 are in Scopus. So there's only 9 journals in Scopus in which you can publish in the Arabic language. Now, these statistics are taken from a current project of mine to map the open access journal landscape of the Arab region using data kindly provided by DOAJ and PKP. And the purpose of the project is to map the journals by subject, language, location, indexing, infrastructure, and financial model, to better understand the region's scholarly communications ecosystems and to make the analysis freely available for the region stakeholders. We've mapped 4,000 journals so far, and we've identified a further 2,000. But the project is taking a little longer than anticipated, owing to the significant discrepancies between the data sets provided by everyone and the journal's own websites. And to highlight, that's over 50% of the entries, if you take a single journal and look at its presence in all the different areas, having inconsistencies between the different databases. So each journal is requiring manual cross-checks for verification, which, as you can imagine, is taking a little time for all 4,000. Now, at this stage, I can only provide the high-level regional insights and some national nuances, but I think we can agree these are actually extremely positive, particularly in the context of this conference. There is a strong and rapidly growing scholarly communications ecosystem in the Arab states, with evidence of activity and growing activity and growth in almost every country. More importantly, if the slide wants to change. No? Can someone help me change it? Like pointing somewhere? Anywhere? There we go. The vast majority, 97% of the journals that we have found so far, of the 4,000, are open access. And of those that have been verified, 86% of those in the GCC are Diamond Open Access. 99% of those we verified so far in North Africa are Diamond Open Access. Open Access. And then of Diamond, 85% of North African journals are Diamond and 44%. Still good, not quite as good as I was saying, but still pretty good. And the key thing I want to highlight about the shift to Diamond is that, first of all, many of these do not actually self-classify as Diamond. They're not aware of Diamond as a concept. They simply consider themselves as open access with no fees. So that's why sometimes further research is needed based on all the other databases to identify what's actually going on in our region. But also, more importantly, this has largely occurred without national or regional mandates. In many cases, it's occurred without any real understanding of options and alternatives. The journals' owners have just launched new journals and internalized the cost, rightly viewing these journals as valuable assets to showcase their faculty research and enhance the institution's prestige. And to give you one example, King Saud University in Saudi Arabia now has 53 open access journals. That's 53 in a single university, which actually equates to 61% of all the journals in the country that we've verified so far. But as I mentioned, we've only found 6,000 across all 22 Arab states. By contrast, France alone has 42,000. Sorry, I'm talking too fast, I get excited. Get very excited. So by contrast, France alone has over 42,000 in the ISSN database, though only 10% are currently listed as open access. So clearly there's a lot of room for regional growth across the Arab states. But developing Diamond journals requires investment. And the precise nature of the investment required in digital tools, in human capacities, and in cold hard cash, it's not really discussed. But understanding these financial details is a vital piece of the puzzle, the missing piece of the puzzle of what we're all here to discuss today and over this conference. And it should really be integral to any discussion regarding the future of Diamond Open Access and how to support it. Now, I think there's various reasons why we've not fully assessed the financial considerations so far. First, there's still a persistent assumption that there are no legitimate financial burdens associated with publishing open access. Secondly, the question of how much one can realistically and ethically rely on scholarly volunteers to cover either the or both sets of roles associated with the editorial board and the editorial office. This is still being debated. Thirdly, one could argue, I think safely in this particular environment, that the pay-to-publish model has so thoroughly perverted the academic publishing ecosystem over the last decade that prior approaches and investment assumptions have almost been forgotten. And finally, there are very few Diamond publishers or publishers supporting Diamond in operation, which prevents a comprehensive overview of Diamond from a purely commercial perspective, where the financial outlay and the service quality must be balanced to ensure a genuinely sustainable business model. Yet, regardless of whether one is going to launch and manage a Diamond journal in-house or rely on external publishing or an external publishing partner for some or all of the workflows, there are some core assumptions relating to the required investment of financial and human capital which should be factored in. And for the remainder of this presentation, I want to share some of the metrics that we use as a publishing partner to calculate the value and the cost of our production, publication, promotion, and indexing services. Now, there are obviously various areas of cost to consider. For the purposes of today, I'm going to leave out the human costs associated with editorial board and peer review activities, as realistically, it's likely these will continue to be part of the unpaid academic service contributions across the whole sector for the foreseeable future. So therefore, they don't need to be factored into the ROI analysis relating to sustainable Diamond development strategies at this stage. So there are various approaches one can use, but the goal for a Diamond journal, as we all know, is to balance high operational efficiency with low financial outlay. And the best approach to achieve that is still, we think, the OJS platform, which combines the submission system with the hosting and lots of useful widgets to help expedite the process. So I'm going to use that as the basis for today's discussion. So for the initial setup, we assume the following costs: purchase and setup of a website domain, the SSL, possibly an email account. All of that is around $100 a year. You'll need around 8 hours for back-end setup and customization, typically around 3 hours of developer time and 5 hours by a production manager familiar with the system and workflows. You need to account for 6 hours of cost for the front-end website setup and customization, depending how much customization you want. Our journals normally want a huge amount. And we also usually estimate around 4 to 6 hours of consultations or brainstorming with the editorial board to ensure all the website content, the title, the scope, the branding guidelines, the designs, production schedule, board roles and responsibilities, ethics, policies, all of that are all created and approved before upload. There are also some one-off costs associated with the first issue. The ISSN is around €53. Though if you're lucky and have a national agreement, it's free. Happy days. And we usually estimate around 4 hours for the initial setup for that. Sherpa Romeo is free, but the initial deposit takes around 4 hours of someone's time, and that should be factored in. And in addition, the sort of general setting up of the processes, the feeds and accounts and sort of entity identities for the initial round of indexes that accept new content straight away from a journal, typically, again, takes around 3 to 7 hours. So what this means is that the initial setup will probably cost any of you or your universities that are looking to set up a journal, it'll be about $190 in direct costs and require a minimum of 35 hours of human capital. Now, moving on to production, there are 3 explicit external costs. Authenticate, which is $1 per article. The long-time archiving, we use Portico, so we have an annual membership charges of $250. And then there's the DOI. So Crossref membership is based on your revenue, but if you're a small scholarly society or a university and you only have the one journal, hopefully, you'd probably be looking at around $275 in national fees plus $1 per article. In addition, we calculate typesetting in XML at approximately $3 per page created, plus a further $5 per article for specialist formats required by different indexes. And so this estimate might seem high, but it also encompasses the hours required to collect and circulate the galley proofs for review, to make corrections, and all of that sort of associated labour. Because the biggest hidden costs of publishing lies in the labour required to turn the manuscript submission into a properly formatted, copy-edited, typeset document with comprehensive metadata, which can be converted into XML, hosted on a website, downloaded, circulated as a PDF, and included in abstracting and indexing databases. And this takes time. And while I can't put a price on the labor of individuals, because obviously seniority, country, all of these variables have to be taken into account, I can share our metrics for calculating the volume of labor required. It takes 5 minutes to generate the Authenticate report for the submission and send it to the board. Copy editing and formatting takes around 3 to 7 hours, depending on article length. DOI creation takes approximately 15 minutes per issue. Uploading the website takes around 25 minutes per article if you're using OJS. You've got a further 5 minutes for each article in Portico, and a further 10 minutes per article for Crossref. And finally, we allow 3 to 5 hours at the end for the indexing of the full issue. And the reason I go into this detail, it will become clear shortly, but ultimately we calculate the average issue level cost at around $390. With the article level cost is around $300, to which we add the further $3 per page for XML. Now, these are ballpark estimates, and they make certain assumptions relating to the use of available tools and solutions and regularized workflows managed by experienced experts. These estimates also don't factor in tracking and analytics and strategic development activities, and nor do they include the non-essential promotional tools like Kudos or tracking tools like Altmetric, or the multiple AI-enabled products currently flooding the market. They also don't include things like the cost for plagiarism checks for articles that don't go on to actually be accepted. However, they do provide a useful starting point for discussions concerning the practical requirements for the financing of a Diamond Open Access journal, giving us a rough idea of what investment is required, both financial and human. And based on these estimates, we can assume the approximate setup costs, financial and human, of around $1,500 per journal, with an annual infrastructure and membership cost of around $600. And using an average of 7 articles, which is what certainly for our clients is the average, we can further assume that the cost to produce and publish each issue, on top of those annual charges, would be around $250 in direct external costs, plus a maximum of 60 hours of labour. We can therefore extrapolate and estimate that the full annual cost of production, publication, and dissemination for a Diamond Open Access journal would be around $1,100 in external costs and a maximum of 120 hours of labour, internal or outsourced, for 2 issues per year. It would be $1,600 and 240 hours for 4 issues per year, and $3,600 and 720 hours for a monthly journal that has 12 issues a year. Now, as I said, this doesn't include overheads, nor does it include the additional workload surrounding promotion activities, both promoting new issues and boosting the journal's circulation and reputation more generally through networking, collaboration, marketing campaigns, and conferences. It doesn't include activities, as I mentioned, relating to the long-term strategic development of the journal, including those all-important indexing ambitions, which again can account for a significant tranche of time. But as a ballpark, we usually assume around 20 to 40 hours per quarter of promotional, strategic development and indexing activities, depending on the number of issues and the proactivity of the editorial board. And I think that having this detailed understanding of the costs, both external financial outlay and internal human capital, is really important to help enable localized Diamond Open Access activities, empowering institutions and funders to make informed decisions about whether to invest in Diamond. It can also be used to decide how best to use those available resources to ensure the journals provide high quality, accessible and discoverable content, facilitating the decisions about what can be done in-house and what can be outsourced. And more importantly, I think, establishing reasonable prices for those outsourced activities. And that is the crux of why I wanted to share this information today, is because if we don't establish those baseline assumptions, if we don't have what we consider and will enforce as an acceptable level of pricing, we will be in exactly the same position we're in now with the big global publishers as in 10 years' time, when the government's mandate for open and suddenly every university has an open journal because owning an open access journal is one of those vitally important Times Higher Ed and QS criteria, the big publishers will pivot again, as they have already done in the past, and they will come and they will start charging very high prices to cover some of the production workloads and things. And we know this is going to happen because it's already happening in the UAE. There are a number of publishers already circling the Diamond journals that are available, and they charge between $2,000 and $3,000 per article to publish, which, as you can see, is not a reasonable charge. So it's very important that we know what we're willing to accept and what we are willing to pay for these services and what these services are really worth. So that is the purpose of this slide. But regardless, what I hope this demonstrates is that the level of investment required to develop and manage a Diamond Open Access channel, it's really comparatively small. And I think we can all agree the return on investment for the journal owners, for our academic communities, and for the global public significantly outstrips this relatively modest figure. And I think we can and should and will be able to demonstrate this to universities and to funders and encourage them to reclaim and rebuild the academic journal sector, because these are really valuable assets for everyone and they are worth investing in. Thank you. And sorry for speaking too fast.
Great, thank you very much, Emily. I think this was really, really useful. I mean, it is definitely, for me, the first time I see such a detailed breakout of the different costs involved, right? So it's really interesting to see these are the things that we can take when we negotiate, indeed, with the funders, with the others. And one of the things that we've been saying also in the open science space, it's not necessarily new investment in open science, it's redirecting the existing investments from closed to open in a way. So studies like this are really, really interesting for us all, I think, because they help us understand better what costs are involved. So thank you very much for that. And the last speaker, Professor Liu, please, the floor is yours.
First of all, I will say some things. Thanks the Science Europe and thanks the UCT to have the invitation, have me to give me an opportunity go through the time tunnel from winter to the summer. So, and second, we'll have a contribution, congratulations for the Diamond Open Access for the Africa in this meeting. I want to say that the DOA is for the Africa is your table, so your term. We come here. We have the Table Mountains, so your tables to that. And I think I have learned a lot of knowledge about the Diamond Open Access and other presentations. I've had your knowledge, your notions, and your experience for me. Now I will have the presentations for the situations of open access in China. In this, I have don't have many more comments about the. I just to share the data, the factor, and actions for in China in our libraries. So. First of all, they have the timelines for the. So we have promoting the access for more than 20 years. Most of them is pushed by our by my libraries to that. So we have a lot of stories in the 20 years. So because I have no time to tell the stories about that, and I also have no time to introduce my libraries to that, where I have some copies introductions in the recitation test. And first of all, we can say that China is a major contributors to for the global or open access or global open science. So in my presentations, we have to more introduce about the open access, open publishings, so that we also had more about this. So my introduction about 4 parts of that. First, we can present the current state of the OA publishing in China. You can see that China has ranked first global in both number and preparations of the OA papers. So you can see that we have about the total global OA papers about 1/3 to that. So and the second, we can also see the OA journals in China. Now in China we have over 5,000 STM journals in China, and 87% in Chinese, and only the 10% in English. So we can say in the 5,000 journals about 36% are OA models for that. So I can say the most model, the Chinese journals are OA models for this. In China STM journals, we have different ways. Because the China's administrations for that is not too feasible to apply or open journals for. We cannot sort some the kind of OA models for China. So I have opinions about that. In the second, the Chinese policies and action to promote diamond OA. You say in China, all the STM journals are not commercial business. So the public activity support the STM innovations for that. So we can say each journals in China have received about the annual about 20,000 yuan a year from a government agency to that. And also they have many others support. The cost support to be found, the cost will be found by the government agency to that. So I believe that the journals of China all belong to the Diamond OA. So this is my recognition for that. And second, the major fund in the STM journals in China. We have three kind the action plan. The first is the China's STM journals excellent action platform action plan. For every year, the government will have about the 300 millions to support STM journals. And about the 200 journals and 200 Chinese journals to receive the fundings for that. And in case, we have the same programs to support the journals in the case. And in the province STM, they also have the excellent action plan to support this year. And now we have some fact about China is the world's largest payers of the APC for that. In the 2023, we have paid a total about 750 millions to for the APC, accounting about the 20% of the global cost to that. So many business publishers are in China to get the APC the papers about that. We also have like the NSFC from the 2020 to the 2023. We have the heavy fundings to support the APC for the open access papers. So almost all the APCs are paid by the public fundings. So I have to say the journals in China is also a demand open access journals. And the third, we actually introduced about the Chinese development of infrastructure to support the demand, the DOA for that. We have established the infrastructures to cover the entire publishing process. So the open science infrastructures will have covering the publishing process or including about the preprint platforms, open peer review systems, data sharings, and institutional repositories. So like the public scholar is platforms is published by our libraries like the scientific data repositories. We have the three kind the first, I have the national levels, the scientific data repositories. First, like the SDG big data platforms, and the second is supported by the we have over 20 national scientific data centers in the different fields about that. And in the case, we have the science data bank for the data repositories too. We also have established the preprint platforms for. So we have established the preprint platforms alliance for the platforms can share the metadata about this. So our library is the major members for the preprint the platforms like the China Archive is supported by our libraries. And the third, we also have the publishing open publishing platforms like the open publishing support. It is also supported by the China STM journals extended action platform. So like the science engine is operated by the publisher, and the Science Open, Science Open is operated by the university publishers, and the Frontiers is operated by commercial publishers to that. So in this, the open publishers have integrated open access, share data, and prepare to fund the publishing process, and openly to share the academic communications to that. And this will have connect all the platforms together. And next, we have established the institutional repositories. This is promoted by by my libraries in about 20 years ago. We have the it's about 100 institutional research institute to form the CAS grade for that. So we also had a university, the institutional repositories, and the basic research knowledge based for this kind the open access. And next, we also have the Open Scholar Articles Service. It's supported by the social science academics to that. These platforms are content about over 1,000 the journals in these areas to that. And next, we have the publishing academic platforms for the open access communication is operated by my libraries to that. We have to get more knowledge sharings and the platforms by our library and by the computer information centers for the scientific data and science publications for the journals to that. And we have operated 1 year. We have many metadata, full text, pattern, preprint books, and data set for that. And we have the communications platforms for the scholar communities to provide a smart knowledge service for them. And of course, the next strategy for the Diamond OA, we have to develop the publishing ecosystems to support the Diamond OAs for that. So we have a long-term support from the publishing fundings, and we also have established open science infrastructures for the publishings, for the journals, for the communities for that. Next month, the president have announced the initiative for the global South access to global scientific achievement for that. So I think we have to our library or even China will have to develop some open file and the environment for the global science and technology development for that. Also in the last month, we have created the national academic the platforms public scholars by us for the open the academic communication systems to that. And also, we have our library to support the Diamond OA systems to support that, for that. And also, we have the proposal to support the UNESCO's Open Science 10 years. We have announced the public scholars globals to support for that. We try to give the examples to support the Open Science 10 years for of the UNESCO's to that. So we have to contribution our actions or the experience for the global open science for that. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Liu, for sharing this very rich experience from China, many different things. And I'm sure the audience has lots of questions for you. So now I'll actually open the floor for the questions. We have some 20 minutes for the questions, 15 minutes for questions. Okay. So please, if you have any questions, come to the two microphones. Okay. And already questions over there? Okay. If somebody can just bring one of the mics in the audience as well. Okay. Great. So let's start there and then we move to the other questions. Go ahead, please. If you can just introduce yourself very quickly so we know where you're coming from. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm Jiraine from University of Nairobi, Kenya. First, I want to take the opportunity to thank all the presenters for their insightful presentations. Now, my question is to my sister. In fact, it may not end up as a question, but you've given us your challenging story and the experiences you underwent when you are trying to publish. And I'm happy it's about the indigenous vegetables. You know, I was trying to link your indigenous vegetables research to our indigenous knowledge. And you are aware that most of our indigenous knowledge is communal. So when it comes to open access, how would communal, knowledge be open to the readers? Yet, there are so many restrictions. Sometimes you also have to think in terms of patenting. And it goes out to all other presenters because my other colleague also mentioned about the various charges or in the various, what could we do? I'm trying to get the name. The various levies that the journals incur in terms of having the entire, which was going up to maybe over 3,000. Yeah, access, yes. The cost implications, in terms of making the resources available. Yeah, the whole scenario is quite complex. The cost effective about the journals, you can see it, they also have a valid. I'm not advocating for APC or BCP, but there is always a cost for everything. We can never have a free, yes, but still we have to protect our own. Yeah, how do we navigate the complex landscape That's to all of you now. But my sister, I also want you to look at it from the indigenous perspective. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Great questions. Maybe I'll let you reply, and then we'll go to the other questions as well. Yes, please. Maybe Emily and Professor Mary.
Thank you very much for your question. With regard to indigenous knowledge and indigenous resources, we have an international guiding principle. If you're going to work with the indigenous, I think it's a recent development before, not that early time I started the research, where when you go to a community, you must sign some agreement so that out of the research, they will have to gain something. So it's give and take. So it's protected. I just can't remember the exact, but there's a protocol. I remember even when my students have to go to the community, they must go and sign an agreement that when I do this research, something comes out will go down there to the community. But in terms of IP, I want to say this to all of us. Open doesn't mean, I think someone said open. This should be some guidelines. It should not just open, completely open sesame, but you must have some guidelines, but make it access, but have some guiding principles. That's what I understand. Yeah. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Absolutely, yes. Thanks so much for this reply. Emily, please, regarding the costs. Nothing is for free, right?
No, sadly, no such thing as a free lunch. I think to answer your question, it's the key thing is to be transparent, but also to make sure that we understand what it is this time around that we're actually paying for. When the shift from subscription to open access happened, everyone was blindsided. I say this not wearing my publishing hat. Briefly, I'm on the academic side as sitting on an editorial board. You know, suddenly we had to shift to open, and we're told by the publishers, oh, well, there's labor involved. And we're like, yes, of course. And then they say, and there's overheads, and oh, God, you know, the cost of light bulbs is terrible right now, and we have to keep adding on all these things that you don't know about because it's not your industry. You don't understand. This is what it costs. You just have to trust us. And we all sort of rolled over and said, oh, right, well, of course we will. And I think the key thing is for this time is, and that's why I went into an admittedly excruciating level of detail, is we need to know what it is that we're paying for and then decide, do we want to internalize that cost? Do we want to do that within our own house? You know, we can sort of split it up piecemeal, or do we want to outsource all of it? Or maybe there's just one stage where, you know what, we know what it costs internally, we know how many hours it is, we know what we'd have to pay to people in one department to handle that. We can get a publisher to just cover that bit, and that is a rational and reasonable and acceptable level of cost, and we are willing to outsource that piece of the puzzle because everyone's agreed and we're all being very open globally about it. That is a fair price tag, and that is what the service costs. And I think that's where we have to be, because otherwise, as Open does shift to Diamond, the publishers will shift with it. They all want money. They'll end up charging the $11,000 that they charge per article as an APC. They'll charge that per article for the journal, and then add issue costs and annual membership charges and everything else will just get added on, and we'll be in an even worse position. So I think, to answer your question, it's just to really think about what it is we're paying for and why we're paying for it and which bits we need to pay for, would be my answer.
Excellent. Thank you
Hopefully
very much.
that was helpful.
Great. The two questions or more from this side, and then we'll pass to the other side. Please go ahead. And I'll take both so that we have time to get more questions also.
For great presentations. I really enjoyed them. I have a question to Professor Liu Shiwen. So you mentioned PubScholar, and I'm from the directory of Open Access Books, and we were contacted by you, one of your colleagues last year, about harvesting DOAB, the directory of Open Access Books, to PubScholar. And of course, we were very happy to agree to that. My question is really what your plans are for open access peer-reviewed books for the future, and if there are any ways in which we can engage further with you. Thank you.
Great. Can we just have the other question, and then I'll let you reply so that we go a little bit faster. We have more time for questions. Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much.
every member of the panel. I think I had a fantastic time. Thank you, Secretary General, for the opportunity to crash into the meeting today. I'm Beatrice Okpelu. I'm the Director of Business Solutions and Consultancy Services, a Professor of Environmental Toxicology and Chemistry with CPUT and UNISA. Mine is a general question, I suppose, and the first question is, I want to ask anybody from this panel, is who defines quality of a science? I've listened to a speech delivered in French today, and I've listened to Chinese keynotes. When will I be able to deliver a keynote in Yoruba without being ashamed of my language? That's a question. Then who defines the quality of the science that we do in Africa? If I do analyze phenolic compounds, for argument's sake, in my lab, using the small equipment that I have, and somebody else uses HPLC, Q2F, whatever, up north, and we can corroborate both and validate both to be correct. Why must I suffer for not getting my work published if my result can be validated with the state-of-the-art equipment? Well, how do we step out of this space as Africans in the global south? That is the one question. And then the one thing I want to also ask this panel, or perhaps somebody in the room, is to say, when will Africa herself rise to the challenge? Because what I've seen is, from the data presented today, journal articles published in Arabic, French and Spanish, Arabic, English and French, Arabic. When will Africans own their own science? Because if we don't own our own science, our own knowledge, and contextualize it for societal relevance, then we cannot get to what we want to get. He who pays the piper dictates the tune. So when will Africa start? And if there is somebody from Africa that has the power, when will you start funding open access the way China is funding it? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the two great questions, impossible answers, but I will give the floor to the panel. So please, Professor Liu, the question that was addressed to you.
Yes, thank you questions. I try to answer the questions to 2 points about the OA books. In our libraries, in the platforms, we have the idea of have the test to support the OA books for that. We just to try to do that because we in this stage we are more about to support the articles about that. And the latest questions about in our the PubScholar the platforms, we have the AI assistant translations for that. Can have translated about 70 language to have the troubles. So I think the language it is a lot of troubles for the for this. We have companies in the case to support these translations for that.
Thank you very much. The other two questions, go ahead, Professor Mary. Good luck.
I don't have an answer, but I want to say this. One, in terms of publications, I think that lady, I forgot her name, from NRF.
Knox.
We were just in Botswana the other day, and we did an exercise where we were trying to write something in our languages. So the work has started, Beatrice. It has started so that we say, if it is your language, I don't know which, Yoruba, you write it. If it's Swahili in Kenya, we write it. If it is, I think she was trying to do it in some language in South Africa. So the work is there. So it's up to us. Just borrowing from the story of African vegetables, we just have to do it ourselves. You say we want this language and we do it. And then for Africa overall, we can also project Kiswahili and other prominent languages. We can do it, but who can do it ourselves? And where does it start? Don't wait for the policymakers. Just start at your level. Like me, I've done my part, you do your part, and someone will see. Listen to what I've shared my story, someone will borrow from it. So it's an individual starting. Even if you start with yourself, say, I've done this. Even when you go to the policymaker, you say, I've done this. What do you say? That's how I convince the governments to start funding indigenous vegetables, because they were saying those are weeds. Now I'm getting big funds from them because I had to go to them and tell them, I've done this. This is the advantage. So we just all start at our own level. When it comes to quality, that is also an issue I ask. What is quality? Must we be all the same? Must be all that be Western? Okay, Africa is unique in its own niche. China is unique in its own niche. So they should not be a standardized thing. So we should, and who should fight for it? Ourselves. We say, now this is what we have. This is good for us. Because I had made a case for indigenous vegetables. They said these are weeds. I said, but they have nutrients. They have this, and they were convinced. So it's up to us. Thank you. My take.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please, 3 more questions on that side.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Sadiat Aditu Salau from a librarian from Nigeria. And I think I enjoyed this session more because it's on research assessment, which is an area I have been advocating for to drive open science adoption in Nigeria. And interestingly, I have been using examples of developed countries that are shifting from or reforming their research assessment from publishing in Scopus, Index, and Web of Science for my researchers. And I see the reason why I've been getting a lot of backlash. Obviously, from the statistics I'm seeing from China and France, these countries are funding their journals via APCs, which is not applicable in my country. And so very successful researchers are telling me, if you want us to stop publishing, or at least reduce our publication from Scopus Index to indigenous journals, like you say, how do we collaborate? How do we compete globally? You know, so they look at me like I am trying to further drop the standard for the global south. And I understand why now. My question is to you, Professor Mary, because I've been speaking to very successful researchers like you. What do you think of research assessment reforms? Like where you tell researchers to actually move away from publishing in Scopus or Web of Science in DEX journals that charge APCs that we in Nigeria do not have that fund to pay for, and so most of these researches are closed, further exacerbating the issue of visibility. What do you think about shifting to now publishing in indigenous journals? First, for early career researchers like us that are building our careers. Now, if you come to say yes, and so that's what I want you to consider from an early career perspective. So that I don't look at you and say, Professor Mary, you're successful now. You don't need Scopus Index journal, but I need it to compete globally. What do you think of those as reforms? So if I have to advocate, what should I be talking about? And I know you mentioned something about some qualitative metrics. Can you please just give examples? And this also go for Doctor from India. Qualitative metrics, or rather quantitative metrics, cannot be pushed away right now. I got a lot of backlash from that too. And I understand that we have to include qualitative metrics to quantitative metrics. Can I have examples that I can give, that I can say to these people, okay, fine, we'll use the H-indexes, we'll use the citations, but in addition to that, when I'm speaking to university management, to university leadership, why don't we look at this and this and this in clear terms, something I can relate with? Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. And again, there will be time in the coming sessions to really look into the research assessment more in depth, but please, I will give you the floor, of course, to respond to that as well. Very short questions, yes, because I'm getting really mean looks from both sides.
I'll make
but
it
I
very
do
short.
want to hear your questions.
I'm Al-Walid from Qatar National Library. My question is, if we move away from an author pay model or an APC model, where we expect funders to cover the fees, what is an expected return of investment from a funder's perspective? Or is that even a question that we should move away from, like in the mindset? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, the last question.
Okay, it's not really a question. My name is Eliona Kapapa from Zambia. I came with my colleague, the librarian. I'm not a librarian, I'm a researcher. I just got excited when Professor Mary was talking about the indigenous vegetables. And I'm really one of the advocates from my country for indigenous knowledge. She already answered my question, so I just wanted to know how she handled issues of respect and integrity with her weird African vegetables.
Wonderful. Okay, so Professor Mary, a couple of questions for you. Research assessment, the respect for the African vegetables. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Let me try. I don't have all the answers. I think all of us can also contribute. But for where I sit, let me start with the latter question. Respect and, what was the word? Respect for indigenous vegetables. Let me tell you, if you are passionate and you know what you want, you will go for it. I was laughed at by my colleagues. When I said this thing, I call a seminar for indigenous vegetables. They say she's going to talk about those slimy vegetables. And they would my colleagues would laugh at me. It's passion, commitment, and know what you want and stand for it. 30 years later, everybody wants to work on indigenous vegetables, even those who laughed. Okay, number two, what was number two? The challenge of?
The research assessment. So how do we, what else, what alternatives do we give, particularly to young researchers?
I don't have an answer. By the way, my sister who asked, she was the one who asked, it was not easy for me. If you look at my H index, it's not as high as some of the colleagues who decided just to publish, to go high impact. But I'm satisfied with what I have because my objective was to solve a problem. So we as researchers, we as academics, we need to work together in Africa, for example, or wherever you come from, and come up. I think it's not a one person. I don't have an answer. So it was not a walk in the park for me. It was very difficult to even reach where I have reached. I've reached there, but through thick and thin. So sometimes good things come through sacrifice, determination, and not giving up. So it's up to us, all of us, not me. What I would say, maybe balance. Like I wanted to become a professor, so I had to publish in some of them. At the same time, I want also to publish in other areas. My work that is not known is known by everybody, open access and other untraditional publications. So it's up to us, I think, to talk as a community, whether it's in Africa, wherever, because we have very good things in Africa. But that's the decolonization we are talking about. Why are you publishing? Why are you becoming a professor and then people are dying next door in your country? So you have to make, what is the priority? Is it becoming a professor and having high-flying publications, or are you solving the existing problem and changing people? So it's up to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Munita?
Yeah, so since we don't have much time, I will be very quick and we can discuss in more details later. So the point actually is that you really have to go towards more peer review. But then, of course, it depends on how many applicants you have. All this definitely needed to be figured out. But I think what the first step for you or for any one of us is to build the awareness among the policymakers, among the funders. What does impact factor means? What does H index mean? And how they are being gamed now. So if you once make them aware that how these have so much of negative consequences, then you probably would be able to make them understand that having a peer evaluation, you can always take those values, but then also have a peer evaluation. Not even all the papers, you can just ask to submit the researchers only 2 papers for evaluation, they can do peer evaluation. Of course, you have to figure out the process what will work for your country, your system. But this works in some cases in our country. Some of the postdoctoral funding, for example, in mathematics, they don't look into all this because it's in that discipline, still these things doesn't count. Q1 really doesn't count. So still peer review is the way. So we have to figure out what can be done.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, Sylvie, go ahead.
Can I add something? I have some example. For example, people use very often the exhaustive list of publication, And then we say it's not necessary anymore. You can just put forward 10 of your major publications instead of the complete list. And then you can also explain yourself why such publication is important, what is your contribution, there is an impact, and this is much more important than the impact factor that sometimes has nothing to do with the quality of your paper. So there are some concrete examples for qualitative assessment, I believe.
Great. Thank you very much. Emily, and response, funders, return on investment, please go ahead.
Just very briefly, so I'm director of a learned society in the UK, and as part of that we have a journal, and I think the key thing is we refer to our journal as the jewel in our crown. It's not a waste of money, it's not a pain in the ass or an obligation. It is the thing that we value most. It is the showcase for the research for our field. It is the reason we exist. Our charter is to disseminate knowledge. Our charter is to spread knowledge about, admittedly, a very niche British poet, so it's you know, there don't need to be that many venues for it, I will admit. But it's something that we value, and the journal is the single most important thing. It's our asset. And I think we used to have that mindset as an academic ecosystem. We used to value our journals, and then we moved away from that when APCs came, the big publishers came, and they took our journals, and we forgot. We forgot that we used to have these amazing assets, and we didn't expect them to be revenue generators. That wasn't why we had them. We had them to showcase and share and preserve our research. And I think that the funders shouldn't expect a return on that investment. They should be expecting what they would have, which is a valuable asset for showcasing content, because they are the jewels, and we should, you know, look after them and polish them and take care of them.
Thank you. Professor Liu, any last words for this session?
I just responsible the move from APC about something ideas about that. You know, from the APC, move away from the APC is actually you publish the papers is the duties for the researchers to that. So it should include in the research communities and not to pay money to ask somebody to do the survey for you and then give you a result, give you IP for that. So you lost your IPs for that.
Yes, thank you very much. I think we will stop here because we do need to go for a break and for the other session. A huge round of applause for our panelists. Excellent. Very good session. Thank you very much. You can still grab them during the coffee break and talk to them. Thanks again, and I'll see you after the break. Thank you.